What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you on VinFast. I want to go over some of the data points, what shorts are doing, and why at this price point, things could get very interesting on both extremes. Before I get into any of that though, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did go down 5.53%, did have a new 52-week and all-time low of $7.65. So give yourself a shout out if you did manage to buy on Friday, or if you sold. Let me know your thoughts on what you did. But as far as volume, it was a little bit low. So 3.5 million shares being traded, 4.5 is the average. As far as volume associated to options, still very high. So $565,000 in calls being purchased versus 3.93 million in puts. So based on this information, people are anticipating for it to still trend down. And if you can take a zoom out viewpoint of this, so around $16 million in calls being purchased versus 46 in puts. So that's kind of still generally bearish, unfortunately. If you are optimistic though, this shows all the calls as far as the open interest. Based on this information, it is anticipated to kind of go between the 850 and 950 for the end of this upcoming week. So that could be something that comes to realization. If you are negative though, it is anticipating to be, looks like below or sub $5.50. But no matter what, options activity is just merely a sentiment. It does not move the stock price. And then moving on from that though, looking right here, these are some of the transactions that did occur over $100,000 on the secondary market. So based on the bid, the ask, and the selling price, it looks like most of these were sales that did occur on Friday. So $189, $102, and $159,000. But as well, these are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. It doesn't look like anything over $100,000 occurred since it looks like October the 2nd. And when it comes down to dark pool, that is very much linked to shorting. So I'm going to touch on that in a second because that's more of one of the extreme aspects I'm going to be talking on. Based on any news, there was no SEC filings or recent ones. On October the 5th, they did submit their Q3 financial results unaudited, and still it showed a lot of good growth ultimately, but a lot of people are now looking at evaluations, as they have the whole time, as it went up and down. That's basically what I've been saying this whole time, is a lot of people are just looking at their PS ratio and just comparing it to other EVs and trying to find an appropriate price point for VinFast. So even at its peak when it was at like 80 something dollars, the PS ratio was at 299 or 298, whatever else. It was extremely high. And just to put it in comparison, Lucid is basically around 12. Rivian is about 6.5. Tesla is around 2.5. Polestar, if I remember correctly, is around 3. And so as it stands right now, even though VinFast has pulled back significantly and is in the $8 range, the PS ratio is 20.2. So in comparison to, for instance, even Lucid, which a lot of people say that Lucid is way overvalued, they're at 12. So that does represent that VinFast does need to take another haircut of around 50%, which is kind of crazy. So this is why even at these prices, there's kind of both extremes. So you have people and the larger institutions clearly doing options, assuming that VinFast is going to go down, as I mentioned. And that is largely because of a lot of the analytical people who are just looking at the numbers, saying that VinFast is crazy high and it should obviously go down. On the opposite kind of end, you get value investors and people that are more optimistic. And what I mean by that is, just to start off looking on this. So the latest Morningstar report, it just got updated, I believe, to late last week. So on Wednesday, I believe. It does show the fair market value being $17.20. And that's based on VinFast's assets. So keep in mind where VinFast is at and essentially what their assets are worth. So you get those kind of value investors that are starting to look into VinFast. At the same time, you get those individuals that think a squeeze can occur. So I'm going to share that with you and just break it down, especially with the low float. Like a lot of people from the get-go have been very interested with VinFast, saying that it could be a squeeze. But short score is currently 82.14. Utilization is 94.92%. And then right here it does show the shares on loan being 7.71 million shares. And just looking right here, so 14.08% of the free float is being shorted. 4.54 million shares overall are being shorted. On Friday, shorts increased to 228.92 thousand, and just the cost to borrow average is 324.2%. The minimum is 87.06 and the max is 398.81. So once again, this is where a lot of other people are thinking on the extreme. So like I mentioned, a lot of people are looking at the numbers, assuming that VinFast can go down or should go down maybe another 50% potentially. And then on the opposite extreme, even at these prices, a lot of people are saying, well, you know what, this is kind of interesting. Like value investors are coming in and potentially people that think that this could squeeze, because even looking under the interactive broker short availability, it does indicate that there is no shares available to be shorted. So potentially if the company can come out with some good piece of news, then this one could possibly, again, I'm saying possibly only because having a short squeeze is such a rare phenomenon. But generally, this is where some people are starting to talk on, saying that VinFast is a squeeze. So you kind of have both extremes at these prices. So kind of interesting how this is all developing. And just to piggyback off of this kind of concept for those individuals that do believe that it's going to go up, if you do look at the failure to delivers, it is very, very high. So once again, this definitely is something that you need to consider. It's not on the threshold list by the SEC, so that's something just to keep in mind, but it is definitely being shorted. And with the low float, no doubtably a lot of this is through naked shorting. So once again, you could potentially have a squeeze where it could go up very, very high. Keep in mind, only around 4.5 million shares overall are being shorted. So that's known shorts, that's not counting any naked shorting. So you have to factor in that on a daily basis is around 3 million for volume. So how high it could go, anyone's guess. But as far as this, so just looking at some of the fib levels, going back to the technicals, so $8.03 is currently trading between this S2 and this S1. And this is something I've been saying for a while. The spread on all of these is very wide, so you do have to anticipate that there's going to be extreme volatility. So VinFast is definitely not for the faint of heart, but it does show the S2 being $4.51, which kind of does put it close to the realistic PS ratio to other EVs. So once again, as far as a low, it could go down to around the 450 range. That's just my own interpretation, not financial advisor, of course. But as far as looking here, number of retail investors have been kind of flat, not really doing too much. Stochastic is currently at 3, no defined trend, but it is considered very oversold. So once again, that's a little bit more of a viewpoint on some of the data points, the technicals, and why VinFast could go either very positive in a very upward movement because of a short squeeze, or just a continuation of a downtrend based on just the numbers and just what it's truly worth. So let me know your thoughts on VinFast. Give yourself a shout out if you've been buying, selling, holding, all that other fun jazz. Also on a side note, if you are looking for the latest Morningstar reports, analyst ratings, analyst forecasts for upcoming earnings, take a look at Interactive Brokers. I have a free link to them in the description below and also the comments for all this information, such as even short selling, everything that you need to know. But with all that said, I appreciate all of you watching, and let's eventually make a lot of money on VinFast.